John, we appreciate the few minutes here. So let's just start with Yamamoto. What are you hearing in terms of who's after Yamamoto and maybe what he's looking for in free agency?
Well, hey, Sal. Yeah, I think everybody's after Yamamoto. 25-year-old free agent, that just does not come along very often. No qualifying offers, so you don't have to give up a draft choice. Every big market team is in on him, plus Arizona and Detroit. Obviously, we know the Mets are in. We know the Dodgers are in, the Giants, Cubs, Yankees, every big market team. The one little thing that I did hear, the rumor going around is that he would prefer, now this doesn't mean he's signing there, but prefer the West Coast. We don't know until it ends up. You know, we knew it with Trey Turner. We understood that he wanted the East Coast. Ended up with Philadelphia. You know, obviously his family lives on the East Coast. He's from Florida. His wife's from New Jersey. That was clear. In this case, it's probably more of a preference if it's true at all. So wouldn't guarantee he's going to a West Coast team, but certainly the Dodgers and Giants have a lot of money, and they have a big need for pitching.
Do you think Steve Cohen will be outbid for Yamamoto?
Yeah, I mean, you never know. I mean, you know, all these teams can afford Yamamoto. And, you know, I didn't give you the price. I think he's a $200 million pitcher. I think it's a competition, and whether they know it or not, between Blake Snell, who just won the Cy Young, and Yamamoto to see who gets the most. See if either one of them goes over 200. I could think in this market with so many teams, 8 teams, including the Mets, looking for 2 starting pitchers, I do think both will probably hit $200 million. You know, I'm not going to guarantee that Steve Cohen won't be outbid. You know, he has other factors involved. He's got right now, you know, even with the cuts, looks like potentially about the highest payroll, not to the degree that it was last year, but, you know, once you get that Steve Cohen tax, you're taxed at 110%. So, you know, basically everything is going to be over. And so whatever you're paying, you're adding 110% to it. So even a guy who's rich and generous and wants to win as bad as Steve Cohen does, he's got to think about that.
All right, and then last one on Yamamoto here. We're talking about John Heyman, baseball columnist for the New York Post. What about the idea that he might be intrigued by playing for the Pinstripes?
Yeah, I mean, all I've heard is that there's a preference for the West Coast. I mean, I think everybody's intrigued about playing for the Pinstripes. Japan, and it's certainly a big deal. Does that mean the Yankees have the edge for every great Japanese player? I don't think so. Obviously, they signed Tanaka. They signed Matsui. They've signed 2 of the best that came over. No guarantees. I do believe probably every one of them is intrigued by the Pinstripes. I'm intrigued, aren't you?
Well, I get it. I understand it. And I guess I lied. Last one on Yamamoto then. Let's just say that the West Coast thing is just a rumor, or
right.
Forget even that it's a rumor. It's that it comes down to the Mets and Yankees. Do you think the Yankees are going to have an offer that's on par with the Mets, or do you think they're looking for a pinstripe discount?
Yeah, no, I think the Yankees can bid with anybody. They make the most money. You know, some estimates are that their revenues are $800, $900 million. You know, they can afford it. They can pay some tax. They have paid some tax in the past. They're coming off a year that they've described as a disaster. I think they're going to be motivated. You know, they promised some big changes. We haven't seen them yet. Hopefully those big changes include 2 big free agents, a hitter, and a pitcher.
All right, how about Ohtani? What are you hearing about what he prefers, or are the Mets or Yankees even remotely in on Ohtani at all?
Well, I'm not going to rule anybody out. You don't want to be wrong. We're just reading tea leaves with Ohtani. It's so secretive. His agent wasn't even on site in Scottsdale at the Omni. They wouldn't even admit that he was off-site meeting with teams, but of course he was. I do think that there is something to the idea of comfort, ballpark being big factors more than money. Just look at the fact that he came. If he had just waited a couple years more, he would have been a free agent at age 24 and made this huge money then from baseball. He does make big money off the field. He does not seem focused on money. From everything you hear, he's kind of a homebody. He doesn't do a lot, probably doesn't spend a lot. It's probably more about geography and the ballpark. So, you know, I think certain teams like San Francisco, which has the money, they have a tough ballpark for left-handed hitters to hit home runs. So that might be a hurdle there.
So
the Yankees, great ballpark for hitting. Certainly will play that first year, but he has kind of not been thrilled about pitching at Yankee Stadium. It looks like he's got like a 27 ERA or something at Yankee Stadium. He's a 0 batting average at Oracle Park in San Francisco. I mean, those could be factors.
all right. Oh, so we're talking about West Coast. You think more so with Ohtani, though?
Well, I'm reading tea leaves, but 5 out of the 7 finalists the first time around. 6 years ago before he's really gone to all the places. So he, at that point, he had limited information, but 5 of the 7 finalists were on the West Coast. Yankees were not even finalists. I don't think the Mets played for Ohtani, if I recall.
Yeah, back
correctly.
then. Yeah.
The Cubs and Rangers were the only 2 teams that were not on the West Coast in the final group. Now, does that mean anything? We're not so sure. You hear the Red Sox are in. You hear the Cubs are in again. Texas is in again. Texas, I think, had their eye on him at the deadline, so I wouldn't be shocked if he ended up there. I do understand the Dodgers as potential favorites. That ballpark plays straight up. He loves Southern California. From what you hear, they have been a consistent winner, which obviously with the Angels, they finished 4th place every year. I think they finished 3rd one year. That was the year they won 73 games, and they stepped up for 3rd. They finished 4th every year. I'm not going to rule out the Angels because we hear he does love Southern California. They let him do what he wanted to do, which was the right thing for them and him. So not ruling them out. I do see the Dodgers. If you're going to guess, the Dodgers might be a favorite at this moment, but, Texas, Cubs, Steve Cohen's, you can never rule him out, right? But obviously it'd be very expensive for the Mets when you're talking about 110% tax on somebody who's probably going to make $60 million a year.
Couple more for you here. We're talking with John Heyman, baseball columnist for the New York Post, insider at MLB Network as well. BT and Sal on the Fan. BT off today. How about Soto? Yanks rumored to be in on Soto. I just saw you, John, tweet that you don't think Soto's going to get dealt the offseason. Not that it's not going to happen, but I guess maybe not as likely as others seem. What's your read on what's going to happen with Soto?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to guarantee he's going to be traded. There are some clear hurdles here. First of all, the first thing is the Padres are going to try to lock him up. That may be a short conversation because obviously he's got Scott Boras. I don't see him signing as a free agent. I mean, signing now when he's a free agent 1 year from now. That's probably very unlikely. That said, in a way, you could look at that as a positive for trade, but again, I think that's a negative ultimately because any team that's going to give up big prospects, they're not going to trade him without big prospects. They give up 5 huge prospects to get him. They're not going to trade him for nothing, right? So they're going to want big prospects, and any team that's going to give up big prospects is going to want to lock him up. Do you think that Scott Boras and Juan Soto are going to be able to sign a deal within 3 days and forego free agency, which is only months away? 6 or 8 months away, I guess. At this point, 10 months away, something like that. I think I'm not going to say it's unlikely that he's going to be traded, but I see hurdles, and I could see a scenario where he stays. Now, once they start talking to a million teams and it's out there and you're in deep, sometimes it's tough to pull back, but not always. So, I think that's more of a maybe 50-50, maybe slightly towards staying more than being traded. But he obviously fits the Yankees. Left-handed, outfielder, young, great for Yankee Stadium, good guy. He does fit. I personally think Bellinger fits better because he's a great center fielder, and he's a free agent, and it'll be easier to get him.
All right, John, well, one more for you here. There was a story, I guess, Jesse Rogers had something about Alonso potentially being traded again with the Cubs, and that the Cubs third baseman Morel would be a piece involved. Now, me personally, I'm not buying that. Producer Hoff was telling us about that a little while ago, so I figured I'd ask you about it. The Mets aren't trading Alonso, are they? What's your feel on what's going on with Alonso this year?
Yeah, I mean, I really doubt that. David Stearns has made it pretty clear that he expects Alonso to be the first baseman, and I believe that he really expects him to be the first. I don't think he's just saying that for fans' sake. There are teams that have been asking about him. The Cubs do love Alonso. There are several other teams that love him. I'm not seeing a quick deal made with the Mets at this point. Obviously, they're not going to get him at the Freeman money. He has also hired Scott Boras, and Boras has cited other deals that he made a long time ago, like Teixeira for $180 million and Prince Fielder for I think it was $214 million. And those deals are 10 years or more old. So he's going to want to go north of there. And, right now I don't see any hope for a quick deal with the Mets, but I do believe David Stearns that there's no interest in trading him at this point. They want to be competitive this year.
Yeah, I mean, come on, they can't trade him. They'll let it play out and see like it happened with Nimmo or Diaz a year ago. Yeah, right. Exactly right. Judge did the same thing. Yeah. Speaking of Judge, John, before we let you go, it's Arson Judge season here. You got to be careful now. Because that happened last year, is it in your head this year when you get a story that you're first on, you got to be careful more so because of what happened, or you just ignore that and move forward?
No, I always try to be careful. People make mistakes. It happens. I made sure after that deal that we were ahead on Nimmo and on Rodon, and we were. But you still got to be careful. Certainly with the other deals, Correa, the Devers contract, I was 90% sure. But if I type something, and certainly I got to watch typos.
That's what I was going to say. I was talking more about the typos. Forget about what the team is. I was more
autocorrect. I got to fix that phone so it doesn't autocorrect or it's type. But that's certainly something you got to watch. But the main thing is you don't want to be wrong, but you also, I got to watch saying it looks this way or appears this way, right? Because everybody assumes that I even though they rip me for getting one wrong, they assume I'm right. They're so sure that I'm right that they'll take it to the bank, even if I say appears. Whenever I've said close, it's happened, but I think I said appears that way or something along those lines, and that was not, he did appear that way to me, but you can't, when it's a big player like that, or any player really, you can't, you have to understand that when someone, if you're right appears, people will assume it's 100%.
And social media, you could be right 99 out of 100 times. The one that you're wrong, they're going to let you hear about it.
They love it. People love that. But,
and that's why you got to block them. That's why you got to block them. And by the way, thank you for unblocking me. All kidding aside, I appreciate it. I love following along. You got great information, which is why I want to have you on today. So we appreciate it, John. Thanks for being a good sport.
All right. Always good talking to you, Sal.
There you have it. John Heyman with some of the latest there on some of the top free agents. We'll get back to your calls on the other side with Yamamoto and even Ohtani, Soto. You want to throw those guys in. Yamamoto's the biggest piece, though. And while there may be some rumors that John is saying, like I said, I talk to Andy Martino all the time. We do the Baseball Night in New York show together on SNY. And, he talked about Yamamoto. He's written about it being potentially intrigued by the pinstripes. Also that the Mets are very, very interested on Yamamoto. So it's fascinating to see how this is going to play out.